evening, everybody. My name is Stephen Ray. I'm the Emergency Services. I just wanted to welcome you guys here for our Hurricane Awareness Night. We have Eric Hayden from National Weather Service that's going to speak to you. And then we also have Jen Sawyer from Emergency Services that will speak to you. Welcome. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Eric Hayden. I'm a meteorologist with the Weather Service in Newport, just down the road from the Civic Center here. Good evening to everybody that's joining us online as well. For those that are in the audience or watching at home, we are recording this. So if you have to step out, if you miss any of it, if you think a family member or a friend or neighbor would like to see this presentation, please share it with them. We hope to get this posted on our YouTube channel probably by the end of today. I'm going to give a short presentation on things you should focus on with regards to hurricane season. Then Jen Sawyer is also going to speak after me to talk about Carteret County specific items and resources that we have in the county. Always like to start off, show of hands, how many of you have lived here less than 5 years in Carteret County? A few folks. How about less than 2 years? Anybody that did not go through Florence? So a good amount that we're not here during Hurricane Florence. I know we've got some online folks, so just kind of comment in the question section, how many years have you lived here in Carteret County? Perhaps we've got some folks that are watching us from across Eastern North Carolina as well. The three things we're going to really focus on, not to focus on just the category of the storm. We really want to shift your attention to all the impacts that can occur. We're going to talk a lot about water. That is what is killing people with tropical cyclones. And that's going to be the main crux of this talk with regards to hurricane preparedness. That's what we want you to really focus in on. Hold on one second. Always have to make sure the clicker's working right before you get started. So this is our area of coverage. If you're not familiar, we mentioned we're down the road in Newport, up Highway 70. The whole area shaded in yellow, that's the area we cover for the Weather Service. So as far inland as places like Greenville and Kinston, if you've been on a boat or you've been to the beach, we also do coastal waters forecast out to 20 nautical miles. We're not the only office in the country. We have over 100 National Weather Service offices. We cover far eastern North Carolina. The Raleigh office covers the central part of the state, Wilmington down to the south and east. We are open 24/7. We have a staff of just over 20 people. If you were to visit us really anytime during the day or night, we have at least two folks there. And then if we have a busier night, if there's bad weather such as Hurricane Florence, our staff looks like this. We are all hands on deck when hurricanes hit. We're a reinforced building. We're up high. We have hurricane shutters, so we stay no matter what. When Florence hit, we were there about 3 to 7 days, depending on the staff. At least 3 days because we couldn't leave the office because we were trapped because of the flooding, and then up to 7 days because some folks had damage to their homes. The way we cover those shifts, we rotate through. So we have a day, an evening, and an overnight shift. So much like first responders, police, hospitals, we are staffed for emergencies, and we rotate through those shifts to cover for bad weather. For those that are in person, I highly encourage you to say hello to Logan, Isabella, or Olivia in the back. They have a lot of brochures. The one thing I want you to get for sure is the raindrop magnet. It has our website, weather.gov/Morehead City. If it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. That's kind of our catchy phrase to remember that. This is your tax dollars at work. We fall under the Department of Commerce and NOAA. You've already paid for this information. Please utilize this website. No commercials on it, straight information on the forecast. You can click anywhere on the map, or you can enter your city or zip code in the upper left. If you've got your smartphone, you can also use a QR code for that as well. On the same website, in addition to daily weather, you can get a weather briefing from us when the weather is active. If you go today, not a lot of weather is expected in terms of active weather, so you won't see anything. Hurricane Florence, Dorian, winter storms, major severe weather events, the ice storm we had this past January, we put out a briefing. You scroll to the bottom of the page, and under weather briefings, you can click on that and get that information, usually about 5 to 10 slides of what we anticipate happening. A show of hands, and you can comment from the virtual audience. How many of you are on social media? So a couple of hands here. So varying amounts of social media use in the community. We like it for communication. Our website is really, really good, but it is very detailed. It takes some time to digest. You have to bookmark things and kind of get used to it. Social media is where we wave our hands and say, this is what you should pay attention to. Look specifically at this tweet that I did Thursday morning of Florence. For those that weren't here, Florence was a Category 4 storm coming in. The category, the storm, lowered to 1. And as we're going to focus today or this evening, the category is only related to wind. So a lot of folks that had left said, should I come back? Is it not going to be as bad? And we specifically use words like catastrophic flooding, don't let your guard down, so that they knew that while the wind speed had diminished, the flooding rain threat had not. So we're all over the place on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube. YouTube is really nice because we record things like this and put it on YouTube. We record things like our briefings and we put it on YouTube. So if you've got 5 or 10 minutes and you want to see in-depth information, you'll find that on our social media channel. We use this graphic every hurricane talk we give, whether we give it in April or July or October. The time to prepare for hurricane season is now. And that's because we have a really long season in eastern North Carolina. What this graph shows you is the peak of hurricanes and tropical storms. So the red are hurricanes and tropical storms, and just in that yellow shading are hurricanes. And you can see they both peak in middle part of September. Couple things to get out of this. We're into the last week of July. We haven't even really started the bulk of hurricane season yet. I still remember prior to Florence, we were well through the month of August doing a talk like this, people saying, oh, looks like we're going to be through hurricane season. So for those that are new or that have lived here for a long time, look at that graph. It really, really starts to increase as we get into the first part of August, and again, does not peak until September. So we are not even halfway there yet. So please educate your neighbors about that. That's still one misnomer that hurricane season, July, early August, it could be quiet. Things traditionally start to pick up as we get into the latter half of summer. The other thing to get out of this graphic, we've had storms as early as May. 2 years ago, we had Tropical Storm Arthur, and we can also get storms well into fall. Storms like Sandy and also Matthew occurred in October. Long season. So when I give this talk in April, May, we're talking preparation. When I give this talk July, August, and September, we're talking preparation. It's not too late, but as you can see from the graphic, we're really getting close to when traditionally things pick up. So you'll certainly want to do that. So I've already convinced you it's a long season, doesn't even peak until September. Should I really prepare though? I just moved here, and yeah, I've heard about Florence and Dorian, but do we really get that many storms? Doesn't Florida get a lot? And New Orleans and Louisiana? They certainly do, but based on statistics, this is showing the return period for hurricanes. We are the most prone location for hurricanes in the United States coastline. Again, we are the most prone location for hurricanes along the United States coastline, typically every 5 to 7 years. So yes, season is long, and yes, we typically are impacted in our area, so please remember that. So that can be a bit daunting. Perhaps you didn't realize that, or even though you lived through it, we don't have control over that. We can't change our coastline. We can't stop storms, but we do have control over how to prepare for season, and that's what you do have control over. The first step in preparation is determining your risk. I live in Star Hill, the western part of the county. I'm at 36 feet. My risk is very low, really non-existent, knock on wood, for flooding. I'm up high, but I'm 3 miles from the ocean, so my risk is wind. I've got 3 kids, 14, 11, and 8, and a cat that's 18 and a half, and a wife. So I have to think about where would they go. I stay no matter what. Where are they going to go? I can't just say, good luck, Becky, you're on your own. Does a hotel have amenities for pets? My parents are moving down to our area, so our plan A of Maryland doesn't work for us this year. So what's my plan A? What's my plan B? Does it include, my whole family, which includes pets? Your vulnerability is not just weather related. A lot of times people think, well, I live on both banks or Pine Hill Shores, or I'm in a low-lying area. That's part of it. You're vulnerable to water. But your vulnerabilities also include your household. What are your medical needs? I could survive without electricity. I would be uncomfortable, but I'm not on oxygen. So those are things you need to think about today, not waiting for the storm itself in terms of what your plan is. Step 2, whenever we talk about plan, we talk about the emergency kit. At least 3 days, food, water, and medicine so that you can survive on your own. That is bare minimum, at least that. Really stressing more and more to be at least a week, especially folks down east. We saw through Florence, it took a long time to get to some areas in our county. So have at least a week worth of supplies would be best. And again, anything you would need to survive without electricity, non-perishable food, medicine, needs of your pet or your family. Chief Ray in the town of Beaufort had a good point a couple of years ago, and that's why I love these forums. Jen's going to talk, you're going to talk. I want you to share your stories or ask your questions. We've had a crazy couple years, just crazy. And a lot of us are struggling through economic times. So it's very hard to get all of this. You can't go to a big box store and get this all this weekend, right? So get a little bit at a time. A couple canned goods this week, water next week, and spread it out. So if you talk to somebody and they say, you know, I just can't get all that, remind them you don't have to get it all in one weekend. Just kind of spread that out. If you need tips on making your plan, determining your risk, please visit our website. Again, weather.gov/MoreheadCity. Isabella, Olivia, and Logan will help you find those magnets to remember. And if you just add hurricane prep on the end of that, you'll find all this information. The last step, you've determined how vulnerable you are. You made your kit. Where are you going to go if you decide to leave? Again, if your vulnerability is low and you decide to stay, you better have a really big kit so you can sustain yourself for at least a week. If you're high vulnerability, again, you can't survive without electricity, not just because it's not comfortable, but you might have medical needs, where would you go? Jen's going to talk about places in the county. If that doesn't work, where would you go outside of the county? These are conversations you want to have today. Again, don't forget about your pets, plan for your whole family for that. You don't have to do it alone. A lot of resources are on this site, and Jen's going to mention some more during her talk as well. Any questions on that before we move on? Logan, if you're comfortable at some point, maybe pop up, see if we've got any online questions. If we miss you online, we'll try to take those at the end. So for those that are watching virtually, just type in the question to the question pane, and we'll certainly get answers to those by the end of tonight. So the summer students that are with us, and Olivia, who's new, they all know I love to eat. So this is probably one of my favorite slides. The spaghetti models, a show of hands, who have heard of the spaghetti models or know what I'm talking about, especially that image on the left. So I see some head nods. I know some local broadcasters show it, especially on social media, you'll see it sometimes. And it's interesting to pay attention to. This is just showing all the various possibilities for the storm track. We're looking at that too, but what I want you to focus on are the men and women on the right from the National Hurricane Center. 175 years of experience. They know what's going on with the hurricanes. We're looking at all of it, the American model, the European model. We look at all of it, and we have a lot of experience behind the forecast. So please, those that are on social media, don't just share what's on the left. Please share what is on the right, and that would be very useful. So I like to back things up with statistics. Thank you very much, Logan, for checking that out. For those that have been here for a long time, a show of hands, any of you were here for Hurricane Floyd in '99. So we do, and we have a lot of experience in the office. So I definitely want you all to speak up throughout tonight about your experiences with the storms on the Crystal Coast. So this graphic, the huge circle, shows our average error 3 days out in 1999. So for Miss Jen, if I was briefing her in '99, 3 days out, I would say the center of Hurricane Floyd would hit somewhere from southeastern Georgia up through southeast Virginia. Big area. We weren't as good back then. Computers have gotten better, we have gotten better, and we've improved on the accuracy very much. In 2019, With Hurricane Dorian, I could say 3 days out, the storm center would be somewhere over southeast North Carolina. So when I say listen to the men and women of the Hurricane Center and our local office, I'm not just saying it. We are the best in terms of accuracy and also consistency. And that's very important. Anybody can share every weather model and be right at the very end. But how does that help Miss Jen in Carteret County if we say Charleston, the Delmarva, Cape Hatteras, Florida? So being consistent is just as important as being accurate. A couple more good websites to remember. I say weather.gov if it's the weather you love, because anywhere in the country you can use that. Whether you're from Missouri or Nebraska, or you're from Florida or Louisville, Kentucky, you can click on the map, weather.gov, and you'll get your local office. If it's hurricanes you love, it's hurricanes.gov. That will direct you to the National Hurricane Center page. Great website. Each morning you can check out this tropical weather outlook. It will show you a low, medium, and high chance of tropical formation for the next 5 days. You don't have to sit there and look at it more than 30 seconds. You can kind of look at it and say, hey, I don't have to worry anything. Last time I checked, it looked pretty quiet the next 5 days, so we're good for at least the next week. This image you're probably more familiar with when we actually get a storm. This is the forecast cone that we put out for the track of the storm. A couple things to point out on this. It continues to get very, very, very narrow. And that is because our accuracy improves. This is not hand-drawn based on the current storm. It's not bigger if it's a wide storm and smaller if it's a little storm. It is strictly drawn based on the average error at 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. And we continue to get better. So that path is very narrow. This is Florence, and then day 4 and 5, this is showing slowing down, the error increases. This path shows where we think the center of the storm will go. It does not show who will be impacted and who will not. For example, on this path for Florence, it doesn't mean these folks in Georgia and South Carolina don't need to pay attention. If you're anywhere in the vicinity of the path, you should pay attention. Does that part make sense? Because a lot of times people see this and say, I'm in the cone, I need to pay attention, I'm out, I don't have to worry about it. So that is quite important to know that. A couple of higher end products we just want you to be aware of, especially we get the question, Eric, I decided to leave, the county has an evacuation order, when should I leave? When can I plan to actually leave? And that's what this graphic is very good at. And again, you do not have to search for it. Hurricanes.gov, weather.gov/Morehead City. It will be in our briefings. It will be out there. This is called the earliest time of arrival. What it means in layman's terms, worst case scenario, if you get all your stuff done by this time, you're going to be fine. So for example, this is a slide from our briefing in Florence. This is actual stuff. Wednesday, 8 o'clock, Thursday morning at 8. So if you're out of here, or if you've boarded up your house, if you've done everything you need to do by Wednesday evening, even in a worst case scenario, you're going to be okay. So that's earliest time of arrival. And then we give a graphic that says, okay, that's when I need to be out of here. When's it actually going to get here? When are tropical storm force winds going to pick up? And that's roughly where you could start to see potential damage and safety issues. So that's why that threshold is there. So earliest arrival, and then most likely are very, very useful graphics. All right, so we got past the homework part of the presentation. Who we are, weather.gov, the Hurricane Center, hurricanes.gov, a lot of good, useful information. If you just at least remember those websites, remember to get your kit for 7 days, think about evacuation, and think about your vulnerability. I skipped past it, and this is a conversation we can have after Jen speaks, but North Carolina does a really good job with flood inundation mapping. And if you Google NC for North Carolina flood maps, it's called NC flood maps, you can see where flooding is more likely, where inundation is more likely in our county. Knowing your elevation, knowing your proximity to creeks and streams and sounds is very, very useful. The show of hands. You should all be familiar with this graphic, Saffir-Simpson scale, Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4. Especially for the more experienced folks, but maybe even new folks. How many have heard I'm not going to leave unless it's a 3. I'm not leaving unless it's a 2. I've been through a 2 before. I'm not going to leave unless it's a 3. This scale is only wind dependent. It doesn't say anything about how much rain you're going to have. It doesn't tell you how large the storm is. It doesn't tell you how slow moving or fast moving the storm is. It doesn't tell you where it's going to hit or what side of the storm you're going to be on. The Saffir-Simpson scale is to be respected. Was I worried when Florence was a 4 and I lived 3 miles from the ocean? Yes. I am certainly not saying to ignore this, but please, if you get anything out of this talk, please spread this message to not make your decisions solely based on the category. A lot of folks that went through Florence stayed and said they would never do it again, especially once it went down to a 1, because they let their guard down. Yes, the wind wasn't as bad, but we had 20 to 30 inches of rain. That doesn't show up in the scale. It was here for 4 days. Doesn't show up in the scale. We were on the right side of the storm. Doesn't show up on the scale. So it's to be respected, but I really, really want you to focus on the impacts. And this is not something you have to have a meteorology degree in or look around. You know, if we're forecasting 2 feet of rain, we're going to have a problem. You know that if the storm is sitting over us for 4 days, we're going to have a problem. And we will articulate that in briefings and messages through the county. 2010 and 2019, we had a lot of just ones to reinforce that. Do you remember Matthew? Florence, Dorian, 2011, Irene, lots of just ones. So the next time you hear a neighbor or even somebody that's lived here a long time say, oh, don't worry about that thing off the coast, it's just a 1. Remind them to focus on all of the impacts of the storm because we've had a lot of issues with just ones. This is the graph we've shown for years and years and years, and Jen has seen this. Through 2012, most people in tropical cyclones were dying because of water. About half were storm surge. The other third was freshwater flooding. So water is what was killing folks through 2012. And again, if you squint and you look really hard, you can see wind is 8%. That's what's captured by the Saffir-Simpson scale. Could a tree fall in your home? Could a tree fall in your car? Yes. But it was much more likely you were going to die because of water, and most of it was storm surge. More recently, 2017 to 2021, we've made huge improvements with regard to storm surge. We have storm surge watches and warnings. We put out inundation mapping. The county does a great job with Florence whole county evacuations based on the surge potential and wind. Huge strides with that. But we're still losing most people because of water. Surf and rip related, so this is why we have rips in our talk coming up. But almost 3/4, but a little over 2/3 are freshwater flooding. And those, most of those folks are in vehicles. 16 of our 17 deaths in Florence, flood related, were in cars. 16 of 17 were in vehicles. These are preventable deaths. This is crossing roads that you shouldn't or you might not realize are washed out. So as we end our portion of the talk, this is why we're talking water, and why we put wind down near the bottom. We're going to focus on the biggest issues first. For us, it's rainfall or surge. This is a map from Florence for those that were not here. The numbers are a little hard to read, so just focusing on the magentas and the purples. Here we are at the beautiful Civic Center. I tell Jen this is the best place to do a presentation. So we're sitting along Vogue Sound, living life. Just a great day this evening. But from where we stand right now, west through Swansboro, Jacksonville, just south of Wallace, 20 to 30 inches of rain. Show of hands, how many remember that rain a couple nights ago? One that might have woken you up. And we finally got some rain, right? But we got it all in like 2 weeks. We had about 4 inches of rain, 4 or 5 inches of rain in 2 hours. A lot of rain. We had 5 times that amount in Florence. I mean, we had water over 9 Mile Road and Roberts. We had water issues a couple days ago. We have 5 times that amount with Florence. Tremendous amount of rain. So rain like that can certainly lead to flooding and flash flooding. The other thing I want to point out is notice how the rain drops off to the north and east. when we do these rainfall predictions, notice slight variations can make a huge difference. So we get things like flash flooding. When you get that amount of rain, you are going to have issues. You can also get river flooding. A lot of the major rivers are just inland from our county, but we can have issues along the Newport River, especially with regards to storm surge, and some of our creeks can cause issues as well. As far as the main stem rivers, if you choose to evacuate or wait to evacuate, you can have issues on Highway 70, Kinston, with the river itself. So those are all issues that can occur because of the Neuse River, the Tar River, various rivers in our area. I'd like to show this slide to re-emphasize turning around and not crossing flooded roads. You see the water across the road, it takes about 1.5 feet, 18 inches to sweep your car away. So you still might say, well, I've got 4-wheel drive, got a big truck, I'm up high, I can drive through it. So just put to the side how powerful water is, because it's very powerful. Just put that to the side. You don't know how deep that water is, and you don't know if the road is not there anymore. So you're driving on 9 Mile, you're driving on 9-foot road, Roberts Road, you're late at night, you see water crossing, you don't know how deep it is. So if there's a barricade, don't go through there, turn around. If it's flowing fast, you don't know the rate of speed. It's not worth your life. Again, we're talking about not when the water comes up all of a sudden, we're talking about preventable deaths where folks drive through the water. So the big campaign with that is turn around, don't drown. Very easy, just turn around and do not cross flooded roads because of the power of water and again, how deep that water can be. So heavy rain can produce flash flooding, river flooding. Ahead of a storm, with that wind pushing and pushing and pushing, our waves start to pile up and the water level actually raises ahead of a storm, especially from near the center to the right. And we are susceptible to storm surge flooding across the county, especially if you live from Beaufort east, the down east community, some of our low-lying areas, and also the Crystal Coast, both banks, and it can be not just oceanfront. Depending on the wind direction, we can have flooding on the backside in places like Emerald Isle and Pineville Shores. So storm surge, again, is the rise of water ahead of the storm. We have some folks, we've had some folks online recently up in New Bern. They had 8 to 11 feet of storm surge with Hurricane Florence. The Pamlico Sound is very shallow, so northeast or east wind can push it up into our down east communities, and it can also push it up the Neuse River, and this is also why we had so much issues. The Newport River, Newport itself, 20 to 30 inches of rain, water's trying to flow down the Newport River. At the same time, the surge is pushing back to the north and west. So storm surge can certainly be an issue. I'll never, ever, ever forget getting video, driving around a little bit to see what happened about the middle of the storm or toward the tail end, driving past Carolina Home and Garden, Highway 24, I think it's Goose Creek, I think, 3 feet of water on Highway 24 from storm surge coming in off of Bow Sound. Never, ever, ever forget seeing the damage, salty shores, the watermarks in people's homes, and seeing the volume of water that was up on off of Bow Sound on the Highway 24 side. Very, very impressive. For those that are new, that's something we have on YouTube to kind of show folks what can happen in our area. These are pictures from New Bern, the sailboat, pictures iconic by the hotel in downtown New Bern. And then the lower left is a video that you can see on YouTube. It is storm surge flooding in Overcoat. They're only 4 to 7 feet above sea level, and they had 4 to 7 feet of surge. They can get different types of surge on the backside of the storm as well. So certainly vulnerable in our area to storm surge. I mentioned a lot of advancements. We will put out storm surge watches and warnings. You will get those on your phone. We can put those out independent of having a hurricane. You can have storm surge from tropical storms. We will put out inundation mapping. This shows a reasonable worst case scenario. The red was greater than 9 feet in the New Bern area. That's what happened. So it gives you an idea of what could happen flooding wise. And then we also give out graphics on social media kind of to hit the larger level, what's expected in the whole area. The last item of water I want to mention are rip currents. I'm not talking about rip currents during the storm itself. What we're talking about is well before the storm, well after the storm, or well away from the storm. So this picture, you're from Ohio, you just paid the big bucks to vacation down on Bow Banks. You pay for a whole week. Today's Monday. The storm's not getting here until Friday. Are you going to leave? Probably not. You're going to stay as long as you can. Enjoy as much of the beach as you can. It's sunny out. It's nice out. The storm is hundreds of miles away. However, the swell reaches our coast well before the center gets here. So that's what we're talking about. Or the storm leaves. The water just doesn't calm down right away. It's very rough. Or the third example is Lorenzo. We lost more people on our coastline because of Hurricane Lorenzo in 2019 than Dorian. Again, we lost more people at the beach in North Carolina because of Lorenzo 2,000 miles away than Dorian, which caused the devastating storm surge flooding in Okokoto. Strong swell from distant storms are just as bad. It's not a thunderstorm with ominous skies. It's not as obvious. So when the lifeguards are flying the red flags, when we put out, the products that say high risk for rip currents, don't get in the water. It's not worth it. These are some tips. We have great lifeguarded beaches here in the Crystal Coast. Choose to swim there. You're much more likely to be okay if you swim at a lifeguarded beach. That's step number one. Knowing how to swim is good. Helping somebody else by not being a victim, throwing something to them or calling 911, teaching them how to get out of the rip current. If they're struggling, it does not pull you under, it pulls you out. So directing them left or right to swim out of it so they can come back in. All educational pieces. Again, Miss Olivia, Miss Isabella, and Mr. Logan will direct you to some rip current brochures that we have. Take those. Share them with your family. We have an awesome place that we live. It's not something to be afraid of, but something to respect. It's something that we deal with along the coast. The last two items, tornadoes. I keep talking about I'll never forget. We have a lot of never forget moments here in the last couple of years. So another one I won't forget, doing a briefing to the county or doing something in our conference room and walking into operations and seeing this EF2 tornado off of Bogue Inlet Pier. So a lot of you are probably familiar. Great fishing pier, great place if you haven't done it for those that are new to walk out on the pier, get just an excellent view of the area. I saw this on the web camera. We already had the warning out. I just couldn't believe this. This is something you would see in the Midwest, especially with the videos, and that's the damage on Emerald Isle. So tornadoes can occur with any tropical cyclone, not just big hurricanes. It could be a storm or a depression. They can occur well away from it. So specifically with Emerald Isle, that was almost 24 hours before the center of Dorian got here. Or with Florence, we had a lot of tornadoes in eastern North Carolina. The center was by Wrightsville Beach, but we had tornadoes days later up toward Richmond. So you might say, gosh, rip currents, flooding, how can I keep it all tracked? One piece at a time. If you decide to stay, you've got your kit, you're ready to hunker down, right? Have your phone charged up. Make sure you have a weather radio. You're not going to be out shopping. You're hunkering down for a hurricane, but you could be upstairs looking at the storm or waiting for the storm to hit. Have a way to get those warnings for tornadoes so that you can seek shelter downstairs away from windows if they were to occur. So last thing, wind. We put it at the end again because it's the least likely to kill you. How many of you remember Hurricane Arthur in 2014? Not the tropical storm a couple years ago. So Miss Jen remembers. Are you sure you don't remember? It's a big category 2. It was a similar landfall hit by Cape Lookout, very fast moving storm and a small storm. So most of the issues were to the east and combined to the Outer Banks. Here, from Beaufort east, we had some pretty good wind, but small, fast moving storm. How many remember Hurricane Irene? I see more hands. Are you sure you remember Irene more than Arthur? The summer volunteers are laughing at me because they've heard this before. 2011 Hurricane Irene was just a 1. Just a 1, but it was slow moving, large, 10 to 13 inches of rain, big wind field. You might say, well, Eric, you're probably tricking us. It had a different track. It hit by about Cape Lookout, but we had 50 to 60, 70 mile per hour winds over the whole area instead of just being confined to the Outer Banks. So just re-emphasizing not to focus on just the category of the storm. Please focus on all of the impacts. I guess I lied. I said we're almost done, but there's one more slide, and I always put this at the end. It's the hurricane outlook. Not because it's not an accurate forecast, and not because it's an active year, and I don't want you to be scared and run out of the forum and not hear Ms. Jen speak. The reason why we show you this at the end is it really doesn't matter. And I mean that we're anticipating an active year, so theoretically, yes, we have more chances for storms. But last year was a really, really active year. I think one of the most, if not most, years on record. Did we have a storm here? Do you remember last year? Do you remember 2018? I do, with Florence. It only takes one storm. So we could predict the windiest, weakest, lowest hurricane season on record. And we could be right. It could have one storm. But if that hits our area, it could make a difference in your life. So we always stress, please prepare each and every year. Don't focus on this. Focus on what you have control over. And that is the outlook. So what you can do now, please share this information. I know we have a lot of new folks in the audience, some folks that have been with us. Share your stories. What would you do differently? For you new folks, this is great information. I hope you enjoy hearing it. Share the YouTube link when we post it. And then start working on your kit if you haven't done it. Assess your risk. Remember to focus on the impacts. And then the last line, don't forget about after the storm, carbon monoxide issues. Know how to use the generator safely. Don't use it in an enclosed space like your garage. Being safe on a ladder. Not overexerting yourself after the fact. Not trying to rush back to our area and go around barricades to get back to the region. We don't want to lose any lives on the back end. We do all this preparation. I want to make sure you're safe on all ends. So this time, I'll take any quick questions. We're going to transition to Ms. Jen. For those in the virtual audience, ask any questions and we'll get to them probably as a roundtable with Jen at the end. That is my email. If you would like this talk anywhere else in your community, or hey, you said that you're recording this, where can I find it? Just email me. Yes, ma'am.
Which is the least.
So I'm going to repeat the question just for our virtual audience. We've learned that it probably wouldn't have picked up. So one of the ladies in the front asked, if the hurricane scale is only wind, and it's not that good, it doesn't categorize all threats, what are we doing for another scale? There is a movement and work at a higher level than the Weather Service. It's a World Meteorological Organization to come up with a scale that would better incorporate it. It'd probably take a long time because there's so many factors in a tropical system. Well, what if flooding is a high threat, but the other ones aren't? How would you come up with a number? But it is being worked on. In the meantime, education-wise, this is what we do. Pay attention to it. It's part of the puzzle, but it's not the only thing. That's a great question. Thank you. All right, we're going to transition to Ms. Jen. I'll get you set up with your part. So she's going to speak about some specific Carteret County resources we have. Again, for the virtual audience, ask any questions, and then Ms. Jen and I will be up here at the end. They will want to hear from you, more questions or stories keep coming up after she speaks. So you're good to go. Your clicker, and let me get I'll get your talk up. All right, Ms. Jen, you should be good.
All right. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. And I'll double check. Yes, that's working. Welcome, everyone. I really appreciate you attending and those online as well. My name is Jen Sawyer. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator here in Carteret County. And what I do is I develop and maintain the county's emergency plans. I also coordinate training and exercises for our public safety partners, like our police, fire, and EMS agencies. And I also help in assisting with leading the response and recovery efforts here locally when a large disaster or an emergency occurs, such as a hurricane event. I want to start this evening by reiterating, and I will touch on some of the same points that Eric discussed earlier, but it's really worth mentioning again. It only takes one storm to change your life and your community. Many of you do remember Hurricane Florence, And this hurricane brought significant flooding, many road closures, extended utility outages, and many homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed across the county. The point that I really want to stress is that Hurricane Florence was a minor hurricane by definition, just a Category 1 storm, but it did bring significant impacts here to our county. And we can't control the weather, but we do know that preparation is the best way to get prepared and keep yourself safe from hurricane hazards. Carteret County takes hurricane preparedness very seriously. The Emergency Services Department develops and maintains the county's emergency operations plan, and that outlines the coordinated actions that our municipal and county and public safety officials take during emergencies and disasters. The county activates its Emergency Operations Center, which serves as the centralized location for response and recovery actions and operations. And the staff that support the Emergency Operations Center are required to complete required training, and they also have to participate in annual exercises. We also maintain formal agreements with our state and local partners to provide assistance if it's needed here locally. So what can you do to get prepared for a hurricane? We break it down into 3 easy steps. It's just simply making a plan, building a kit, and staying informed. And I'll touch on each of these briefly as we go on. If you haven't already, make a plan today. Think about and consider the risks at your home and where you live. If you live in an area that might be prone to storm surge or flooding, or if you live in a mobile home, or if you're electricity dependent. You'll need to tailor your plan to your family's needs and think about special considerations for your family, special consideration for children, for seniors, and for pets. Be sure to include a list of emergency contact information, such as doctors, insurance contacts, schools, and emergency services. And write your plan down and discuss it with your family. If you need help, or there's a lot of resources available online. This is just one example of an online resource that's available to you, and that's the readync.org website. But again, there's a lot of helpful information available online. I've also brought some resources here today, and folks are welcome to come by our emergency services office, and we're happy to share that information with you as well. Evacuation should be a part of everyone's hurricane plans. You want to know where you would go if you were told that you had to evacuate and how you would get there. Officials realize that evacuation orders cause serious disruption to our citizens' normal activities and to their lives, but officials also realize that a significant portion of our population live in areas that are vulnerable to the hazards of hurricanes. So relocating to safer areas may be necessary in some cases. Now, evacuation decisions in Carteret County are made by the Carteret County Control Group, and that consists of the mayors of each of the municipalities, as well as the chairman of the Carteret County Board of Commissioners. And this team of leaders is supported by the National Weather Service and by Carteret County Emergency Services and other support partners to make critical decisions regarding evacuation, state of emergency declarations, or even shelter activations. All Carteret County residents should know their evacuation zone. There are 3 zones in Carteret County, which are Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C. You can find out which zone you live in by going to the Know Your Zone website, which is knowyourzone.nc.gov, and entering in your street address. If an evacuation order is issued That evacuation order will include the time that the evacuation order should begin, the time when evacuation and preparation should be completed, if and when access to both banks will be controlled, when and where emergency shelters will be opened, and the evacuation zone or zones that the order applies to. Hurricane evacuation routes in Carteret County are marked with blue and white evacuation route signs. The evacuation routes out of Carteret County are US Highway 70, NC Highway 101, and NC Highway 58. Residents and property owners should contact their town halls for specific information on re-entry passes and permit policies. Don't wait until a storm is threatening our coast to get your re-entry pass. The permit is displayed on the driver's side dashboard to allow for law enforcement officers to easily identify property owners and improve the traffic flow at local checkpoints. The Medically Fragile Registry is a voluntary program that helps us identify residents that may need additional assistance during an emergency. The county can provide transportation to a shelter for residents who are unable to self-evacuate. The county also ensures that special provisions are made for sheltering residents who require assistance with mobility, oxygen, routine monitoring, and medication administration. Residents that require higher levels of care, such as a hospital bed or life support equipment, should make alternative plans with the help of their doctor or healthcare professional. To register, a medically fragile registration form must be completed. The form is available online from the Emergency Services website, and residents may also call the Emergency Services office, and one will be directly mailed to them, or they can stop by and pick one up at our office anytime during normal business hours. Carteret County may operate emergency shelters in the event an evacuation order is issued. Due to COVID-19 and other concerns, we encourage you to look at alternative options to emergency shelters. Try to make plans to stay with friends, family, or at a hotel if possible. Emergency shelters should just be a last resort. Shelter openings are announced through local television, radio stations, social media, code red, and on the Carteret County website as well. Never go to a shelter unless local officials have advised that the shelter has been opened. If you decide to evacuate, if you decide not to evacuate, make sure that you're prepared to shelter in place at home. Anticipate prolonged power outages, anticipate communication outages, understand that cable, internet, cellular telephones may become unusable or have some challenges. Emergency responders and law enforcement, as well as fire personnel, may not be available until after the storm passes. So make sure that you have your emergency kit ready. If you're staying home, stay safe by staying indoors until the storm is over. Tune into your local radio and television stations for updates. If the power goes out, use flashlights or battery-powered lanterns as opposed to candles. And if flooding occurs, don't use electrical appliances or outlets, and make sure you have an escape route if you need to move to a higher level in your home. Never use generators inside a home or inside a garage. There's many deaths that have occurred from the result of improper use of portable generators. Be sure to read the manufacturer's directions to ensure that you're using the generator properly. Regardless if you evacuate or you stay home, every family should have an emergency kit. After a hurricane, you may be on your own for several days. Be prepared to have your own food, water, and other supplies, and make sure you have enough that will last several days. Just like with Hurricane Florence, the storm impacts were felt for at least 4 days. So you want to have enough supplies to last through the storm and through initially after the storm until your traditional big box stores are open and can serve you again, and restaurants begin to come back online. So think long term, make sure that you do have plenty of supplies to last for the duration. The Carteret County website, and let's see, hold on, let me go back, and I want to reiterate to make sure that you stock your emergency kit with the items on this list, but then also consider the unique needs of your family, and make sure that you make special provisions for your children, seniors, and pets. And you'll also want to consider including face coverings, disinfectant, and hand sanitizer in your emergency kit. And once you've gathered all these items together, put them in an easy to carry container, 1 or 2 if possible. I recommend like a plastic storage bin or a duffel bag. That way you can have those items on hand if you're sheltering in place at home. And then if you do decide to evacuate, you can take those items with you so you can have them with you. And it's important to stay informed before, during, and after a hurricane. Be sure to monitor your local radio and your television stations for important updates. And be sure to have a NOAA weather radio with extra batteries. That way you can receive that severe weather information throughout the storm. And the Carteret County website and Emergency Services Facebook page are great sources of information. If you live in a municipality, I encourage you to follow your town's website and social media as well. There's also various apps available for smartphones that can help keep you informed. And make sure that you've registered your cell phones and your landlines for Carteret County's emergency notification system, Code Red. Code Red is a telephone communication service that allows the county to quickly notify residents and visitors about emergencies and health situations. You can choose to be notified by phone call, email, or text message. You can visit our website to sign up, or you can call our office if you need assistance or if you don't have access to the internet. And lastly, I just want to encourage everyone to visit the Carteret County Emergency Services website. There's a lot of helpful information available there. I'm also available to assist with hurricane planning or assist with answering questions related to resources that are available through the county. Our office, as I mentioned, has a wealth of information that's available, so feel free to contact me and I'll mail those out to you, or if you want to stop by the office, I'm happy to share that information with you. And the folks here today, we do have a lot of information here with us in the back. Be sure to grab a bag that's full of information, including the Code Red brochures with instructions on how to register for Code Red. There's also copies of the medically fragile forms. So if you or someone you know needs to complete that form, please help us in identifying those folks that may need additional assistance if we have a severe weather event locally. But again, if you need additional copies or additional information, please don't hesitate to contact me. My information is here on the slide here, so feel free. Also, it's back here that my card's available on the desk, and it's in the bags as well. So I'm happy to assist with any questions, and I think Eric's also going to help with additional questions as well for folks here and online.
Which,
Okay.
I just turned it off, so it's just us now.
Oh, okay.
All right, so at this time, we'll be happy to take any questions that you have, or anybody in the audience wants to share some experiences they've had in the past storms. Really appreciate Jen for allowing us to be here and setting this up. The venue is great. I know some folks are busy, especially with the weather being so nice this evening, so please look for this on our YouTube channel. It'll be youtube.com/NWS Morehead City, or again, Isabella and Logan have some magnets in the back that can help you remember that website as well. So at this point, we'll take any questions. I didn't see any when I just last looked in the virtual aspect. Logan will kind of monitor that. But if you've got questions online, I know we've got a lot of folks joining us online as well. Please ask away, and we'll certainly get to that. And if anybody has a question, just let us know. Or otherwise, you're free to go. So again, really appreciate you all joining us this evening. Please share this information, especially those that are new to the community. We hope you found this of value. Share it with your neighbors. Hook them up with the county itself. The Code Red system is great to find out alerts on your phone. Remind them of our website. And we're a resource here. We're very lucky. We live in an awesome place, but it has a small town feel. Who has a weather service just down the road? The county is very involved in the community, so you're very lucky you live in an area like this, so please take advantage of it. All right.
And I will also just recommend, if we do have any storms that are threatening the coastline, one of the great things that Eric and his office does is provide weather briefings. And they do that routinely. And as we get closer and closer to the storm and the hazards become more clear of what we could potentially be experiencing, they're providing that information. If you have access to social media, their Facebook is a wonderful tool. We also try to reiterate that information, and we share it on every method that we have available. But if you do have access to social media, Facebook, or the Weather Service, the weather.gov website, those briefings are also shared there, and they're invaluable, and they can help you make that decision of whether or not you're going to stay in shelter in place, or if you're in fact going to evacuate the area. So I just want to mention them as a great resource.
And on your way out, I keep plugging the magnets because they'll stay on your fridge. But through Jen and also the state, North Carolina Emergency Management, they have a great brochure. It's on the back with Isabella and Logan. Grab one of those. They're a pretty hot commodity this summer, so our county is really lucky to have those. But they go over everything we talked about up here, especially with impacts and things to make your kit and resources like that. So we'll wrap it up for those at home. Any more questions, Logan? All right, so thanks for watching at home, and we'll post this recording by tomorrow afternoon, so you can go ahead and view it. Thank you very much, and say hello to us on the way out.